Today we're talking about how you go from the clash to the kiss, from fire to fireworks. So, Mrinalini, why do people fight?
All fights are not about what you're fighting about, but it's what you're fighting for. What about jealousy? You will go out of your way, you will bend over backwards for somebody else, but not for your wife.
I think sometimes what happens is people just start taking each other for granted.
You have one partner who wants physical attention and the other partner does not. And that can be very isolating.
If something's happening repeatedly, just be aware that there could be issues.
So ego plays the biggest role in fights, right? Like, why can't some people ever say sorry? Words once said cannot be taken back. And it can cause immense damage. How do you get back to normal after a fight?
Bringing back, flowers.
I literally would want to throw them at you. The number one thing after you've had a fight is to resolve it.
The instances that she spoke about, it did not relate to me, just saying. Welcome back to the Love Rollercoaster. This is episode number 11, and this one is going to be pretty amazing because what are we talking about? Today, we're talking about how you go from the clash to the kiss, how you go from fire to fireworks. I'm your co-host, Gaurav.
And I'm Mrinalini.
And we have, like I said, an amazing episode lined up today. So, Mrinalini, why do people fight?
So every couple fights, right? And you can fight about big things, or you can fight about little things. The little things can be things like laundry. Why do you keep the pot seat up all the time? Why do you keep your toothpaste cover out? Things like that, right? The small little things. The big ones are about finance, about your in-laws. It's about feeling disrespected. It's about, physical intimacy.
Yeah.
These are some of the big ones that, people find it very difficult to come out of. So the very famous psychoanalyst Esther Perel, she says something which is so true, and it hit the nail on the head. Again, she's quoting works of a guy called Howard Markman. And she said, all fights are not about what you're fighting about, but it's what you're fighting for. And this is in her words.
Does make a lot of sense, yeah?
Yeah. So, and basically she says there are three things. One is power and control. You always have things your way. You're always doing things your way. And these are her words. The other thing is closeness and care. You're not listening to me. You're not validating my feelings. And the other thing is respect and recognition. So in every single fight, and everyone just, usually you'll find that you're fighting over the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it all boils down to these three things, right? So, I've got a list of reasons why people fight. It's not a comprehensive list because people can fight about anything and everything. But let's get down to the biggest reasons why people fight.
Right.
Okay, so
I think you're kind of right about that. That there would be a trigger, like something will ignite it, but there is a larger underlying cause, which is actually causing the fight. So it's like the trigger and the symptom. There is something deeper that probably needs to be addressed. And I think in this episode, we're probably going to dive down pretty deep in that and help you uncover that aspect as well.
Yeah. So let's look at some of the biggest reasons. Okay, number one is in-laws and extended family. So I think 90% of a couple's fight usually revolves around the in-laws. When you have interfering in-laws, or when you have the girl's parents or the boy's parents not respecting the spouse,
Sure.
That becomes a big problem. And it's usually the boy or the girl trying to either keep a balance and not knowing how to keep the balance, or not being able to say anything to the parents, or yelling at either their spouse and saying, why can't you make the adjustments, or taking the parent's side?
Right.
So that is something where if you don't validate your partner and say, I get where you're coming from, or sit and have a chat about it, you're going to be in big trouble.
And it's interesting that, I thought this is a phenomena that happens more in joint families, but surprisingly not. And we've seen instances, amongst people even around us where joint family, nuclear family, it doesn't matter. The same things, do come into play either ways. And so just by saying that, okay, I want you to move out of your house and I want to not live with your parents and move to another place, that's not necessarily going to cure any of this.
Yeah, that's not necessary, but yeah, distance does make things easier sometimes. But I think the more important thing is validating your partner's issues.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one. The other thing is kids. right? You and I have had such differences because, you're a very lenient parent and I'm a strict parent. And there were so many times where I would say no to the kids and they're so manipulative, the little shits. They will go running to the father and say, can we have this? And he'd be like, yeah, okay, not realizing that I had said no. And then I would get really mad.
Yeah. And I think, again, around
when they
that
were kids.
yeah,
Not anymore.
I think communication was key. And then I think when we did sit down, we said, okay, if you're going to say yes, check first in terms of, or if I'm going to say yes or no, either way, I think checking with each other. I think that element of communication wasn't there. And the kids knew it, and they would know exactly, when to reach out to me. I'm probably in the middle of something. There's like a call happening, or I think a lot of this happened during the pandemic as well, where everyone was like locked in, and they knew exactly how to push each other's buttons and get what they wanted to. So yeah, I think communication there is obviously key.
Yeah, so that's one. The other thing is, okay, do you give them everything they want? Like, even when it comes to food, you have issues. Like, I'm like, okay, this one is sick, and you giving them ice cream, and I'm like, I used to get so mad because, and you're looking at it from the point that, whoa, poor kid needs to be happy. And I'm like, the kid's going to get even more sick. And who's going to look after him? You're going to bugger off to your work. And I'm going to be sitting and running with the kid to the hospital, to the doctors, like, being the major caregiver. And you're feeding your ice cream.
There was a study around that which said ice cream is very good for a cold. So if a kid's got a cold, give them ice cream. Apparently,
okay, we'll test that theory.
I did read that story, and that's how I was offering them ice cream at that time.
Achha, I'll give you an ice cream when you have a cold now. We'll see how that works.
I'm the no sugar November. 18 days in, not happened till now. So I'll pass on the ice cream.
So, I mean, okay, kids. And that's a big one. That's a big one because there are 110 issues. Send them to boarding school. Don't send them to boarding school. Sure. Buy them expensive things. Don't buy them expensive things. There are 110 fights you can have.
Agreed.
Over the kids, as with everything else.
Yeah. And sometimes it's even, grandparent influence, because sometimes you might be strict, but then you might have, again, the grandparents, which are the in-laws coming in and they're doing a bit of pampering. Or it could be an extended family member, who like maybe comes in and just wants to take them out, and again, kind of does things that you might not be okay with in terms of pampering them with certain foods, certain shopping, etc. So yeah, it's there are external influences in play, at play as well.
For sure. And then the other one is housework. Okay, I mean general housework. So in places where you have to do your own work, laundry becomes a big issue. Okay, when someone's not pulling their weight in helping out with the chores and the dishes and the laundry and making the beds or cleaning the house, or it becomes very frustrating for the person who's doing all the work. And then you have those fights, and then you have that toilet seat and general messiness, things like that. And you don't realize when you have to keep repeating yourself over and over again, it becomes very, very annoying.
Sure.
It's like if I'm having to tell you that, okay, can you please stop putting your shoes over here? And you don't listen for years. And then you're like always nagging about the shoes. What is your problem? You're like, why can't you put the shoes away? So it's like, why won't you put the shoes away?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, we overcame the issue of the toothpaste in the bathrooms by having separate bathrooms.
Yeah.
I think that was a game changer, because otherwise there would be a lot more, fights happening around that. I don't know. I mean, the shoes, I mean, you come back from a long day of work and you just, take your shoes off and you just leave them somewhere.
The shoe rack is at the door. At the entrance. Yeah. So instead of walking in, taking the shoes off at the door and putting them, you will put it on like in the middle of the drawing room as ornament for everyone to come and see. And what is the problem? It's like either you, either you have a learning disability, you can't understand what the person's saying, or you don't give a shit about my feelings. Right? Yeah. If one has to keep, saying, can you please not do this? Can you please not do this? It's something so small. Why won't you just not do it?
Well, eventually it starts to happen.
Yeah, but I'm talking about even otherwise. Like, what makes you not do it?
I don't know.
Like things around the house.
Seems like it's not that big a deal. So when I say like don't sweat the small stuff, but then I guess the small stuff tends to add up, over time as well.
So if somebody is asking you not to do something and you're doing it repeatedly and they repeatedly say, I mean, it maybe is a big deal for them. I mean, maybe being house proud is a big
Yeah.
deal. Like maybe you don't want guests coming in and seeing fat black shoes right in the center of the drawing room. I don't
Sure,
know.
I get that. And again, like I said, back in the day, it was like, okay, what's the big deal? Like there are bigger fish to fry. So that would just be my thought process at the time. But again, if you're listening in, I mean, if you've been asked to put away the shoes, do it. There's probably a reason behind that as well.
Yeah, it's the little things, I mean, it really is the little things which actually tend to become a big mountain if you just
Yeah.
don't address it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to issues, and this is everywhere, right? If you just continue to, sweep them under the carpet and you just, keep them bottled up, I mean, there's a good chance it's actually going to blow up like a volcano at some point. So I think,
Yeah.
one has to be mindful, and if something's happening repeatedly, just be aware that there could be issues.
So now let's look at fighting about finances. That's a whole different ball game, I think, and we've covered it in our previous episode and things like that, right? So that's like those can be big fights. Okay, so when someone is spending too much and the partner doesn't like to spend, or buying unnecessary things.
Yeah. If you haven't got the money episode, link to the episode is right here. Go and see that. It was one of our best and most popular. And we spoke a lot about money related issues, but it can get sticky, right? People get emotional when it comes, to money and spending and all of those aspects. So just be mindful of that for sure.
Yeah. Another big thing is work-life balance, right? When one partner is a complete workaholic or spends all their time out and working and comes back home and then again gets back on the phone or the laptop and just doesn't make you feel like you exist, it becomes an issue.
Yeah. And I think boundaries have to be drawn. And sometimes it's just that if the gadget's there, you're going to end up picking it up. So maybe it's wise to just, leave it outside, a place where you don't have access to it. I mean, at night, if you can keep your phones outside the room, I think that's great.
It's not just the gadgets. It's about how much time you spend outside and working, and you come home and you bring work home and you don't spend any time with your family. I think a lot of times the partner or the spouse feels very unseen and unheard because like you're out all day working and then you come home and you get back to doing the same thing. And what am I doing here?
Sure.
I've been looking after the children. It could be the man, it could be the woman, it could be anyone. But, I'm here, grinding all day at home, looking after things, making life comfortable for everybody. And then, the least you could do is when I come home, you just spend a little time talking to me.
Sure that. What's your advice to people on that? Because I know there are a lot of people who are spending a lot of their time, working all the time, and I think it's happened more so now in the post-pandemic world where people say, "Hey, let's jump onto a Zoom call," or let's do a, and especially if you have work that goes over multiple geographies, and hence you've got India, but you've also got the US, etc. So, advice on what are your thoughts on that? Like, what should people really be doing?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose if you really want to spend time talking to your partner, you would.
Yeah.
So another big one where you have a lot of conflict is physical intimacy, where you have one partner who wants, physical attention and the other partner does not. And that can be very isolating for the partner who wants it.
True.
Because I think everybody has natural urges, right? And if that's not met, I do think that's a very, very, very big factor in relationships.
In fact, just last night I was, with some friends, and in this, conversation did pop up, and this guy's like, okay, this person was a great partner otherwise, but he says in the bedroom there was just no connection, and as a result of which, eventually they actually went their own way. But it was that reason that people, led to that divide.
I don't know. I somehow feel that it's very important. Like it's very important. And there are some people, I mean, I think we will take this physical intimacy part and emotional intimacy part. It'll be like a whole new episode because it's a very, very big topic and it's a very sensitive topic. So we will definitely address it in another episode. But I do think it's so, so, so important.
Oh, 100%.
So, I mean, you have to find a way around that. Otherwise, you're nothing but just friends, friends without benefits. Living in the
That is
same
true.
house for the rest of your life. That's not fun.
Yeah, no, that's a big one. And again, I think, you know, the gadgets have to be out of the room. I think that's again key to making this one work for sure. Otherwise, you'd just be on your phones, on your tabs, on your computers. So kick that phone out of the room. I'll be my advice.
Mm. Lack of emotional intimacy. It's like when one person is emotionally needy, like, give me time, give me attention, give me affection. And the other person's a complete avoidant and, doesn't know how to emote. Like, that's another source of conflict because, again, you do feel like, when I'm down, I need someone to comfort me, but I'm not getting it from the person who I'm spending my life with.
True.
It becomes deeply hurtful. I just feel that the person does not feel valued, that you won't be making that effort to give that person what they want. Let's see it from the other side.
Yeah, and again, I think that potentially what could happen in this situation is that one partner kind of shuts down, locks up. If the other one's, and I know we'll talk about how to address some of these things. I think if the other one's not communicating or making an effort, I think it just leads to a cold war, and then there is more avoidance, and it just kind of spirals into like a really bad thing. So of course later on we talk about how communication is key, but yeah, you can have people who can be differently wired, but I think you also have to adapt to finding a median path.
And what about jealousy?
Yeah.
So, fine, like, your husband or your wife giving somebody else a hell of a lot of attention that you're not getting because they come home and then, they're doing their own thing, which happens after years of marriage where you start taking each other for granted, or, you're like, they're there, ghar ki murgi types. But, it's one of those things where, you will go out of your way, you will bend over backwards for somebody else.
Yeah.
And, it's like, you're opening doors for someone else, but not for your wife, or you're, you see somebody else carrying something heavy and your wife's carrying something heavy and you're like, oh, let me help you. And then you're like, what?
Yeah.
Or, like small things like, if there are a lot of people like, who talk about, like the guy sitting on a chair and the woman standing and then he gives a chair to somebody else. You're more willing to do things for somebody else rather than your partner.
True. Yeah, and I think, like you said, like "Ghar ki murgi dal barabar," yeah. And I think sometimes what happens is people just start taking each other for granted, and sometimes when they're looking to make an impression on somebody, and it could have multiple reasons. It could not necessarily only be for like a physical agenda, but sometimes it could be for making an impression, on someone because of work. It could be anything else.
Oh, look
There
at
could
me.
be-
I'm so cool. I
there could
stand up
be-
for you.
So
I
there
give
could
you
be,
my
there could be a
seat.
bigger agenda, behind it. But again, I think that what is going to be very, very key over here is to point it out. Rather than letting it again, bottle up and say, "Hey, dude, like you've not done this for me, but you're doing it for them." And I think that's one aspect of jealousy. But I think other aspects could also be, potentially when one partner's out a lot, doing a lot of stuff, with their friends, where be it like going out for meals or
Yeah.
going out for vacations, and then you'd have other friends who'll poke, especially if you have drinking buddies. They'll be like, oh, why is that girl always out or that guy always out? And potentially do you see that there may be something going on, and even there's nothing going on, right? So I remember
Yeah.
going back to
Third
a
party
time.
interference
Yeah,
is a lot.
and I
Yeah.
remember going back to a time where we were in different cities, right? You were in Bombay and I was in Delhi, and
Yeah.
even at that time we were like, "Arey, kya kar raha hai?" Like she's gone for this concert or she's gone for that holiday or an office offsite, and even then they're like kind of poking you, even though nothing's wrong. But it's just that people sometimes will poke, and I think that
But that's why I think the trust between the two partners, I mean, if you have that immense amount of trust in that person,
fair. But I
then
think
it
again, it's
works.
again about conversation. If there's something bothering you, I think one should come out and talk about it. So I think
Yeah.
that aspect is important in this
Definitely.
case. But jealousy can be a deal breaker, and sometimes it can actually push one person to do something that they probably didn't want to, but they just did it because they thought the other one's done it, and it could all collapse. So
Yeah. And also, when you're talking about all these things, it's like, how do you bring it up? Because sometimes you feel like an idiot. You're like, I've got this problem, but I don't, and you feel the other person's not approachable. So you have that barrier where you're like, I don't want to sound like a whiny, crazy person. Or, not just about jealousy, but for everything else. Like, I have this problem. I don't know how to express myself. And that person, if if your partner is also very clamped up and not expressive, then it becomes even harder to come out and express yourself, because then you will feel scared of sounding like a needy, emotional fool.
So I think there are ways around that as well, and it doesn't, like, of course, the sometimes the toughest and the easiest way also could also be a direct conversation, but it doesn't happen. But I also see today people doing a lot of stuff like sending indirect hints, right? Like they would probably send you
A
an
reel.
Instagram reel, right? Or they would send you like a YouTube short, and where something is being discussed, and then you're like, okay, maybe there's like a hint, and then based on that, it's potentially opening the door to a conversation. I think the cool part is that between the reels on Instagram and the shorts on YouTube, there's a lot of content that just might pop up. And maybe sometimes it's your algo, right? And you may have said something or watched something for too long, and then more of that's going to keep coming. So, and then you forward that across, and that can be a potential conversation starter as well.
Sometimes I think just writing it out on an email or a message kind of also works.
Yeah.
Because if you feel like I'm not able to come and stand in front of you and talk about it, let me just write my thoughts out, and maybe that can start a conversation.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, today again, technology can help in that side. You've got a WhatsApp message that could go across, or even send across. I don't know. I mean, if you don't want to say it, record a video and send it across. I mean, I don't know, but there are ways to actually go ahead and break the ice.
Yeah.
I think that's something that one should be mindful of as well.
Yeah. Couples who stay together the longest or forever are the ones who fight, and maybe they have like terrible fights, or maybe they disappoint each other really badly, or maybe they just not in harmony most of the time, but they find ways to get over it. They find ways to come out of it. They find ways to make up.
Yeah.
And I think the love and the respect you have for your partner, you will not want to give up on them. I think not giving up on your partner.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I think that's pretty much that drives everything.
True that, because I think the other issue is that a lot of people today are like, I'm done, right? I'm walking out. And it's just become pretty crazy on that aspect. How people will put their egos into play as well. And then, once the egos kind of come into play, then it's like, I'm not going to step down. The other one's not going to step down. And then you have external influences, this and that. And then people are like, screw that. I don't need this, and then they'll actually go ahead and walk out. So there's a lot of, that kind of stuff, that's happening now as well. So
ego plays the biggest role in fights, right? Usually, especially when it comes to making up. Like, why can't some people ever say sorry? So, I mean, what is it that stops people from just apologizing? Like, I don't get it.
I think again, it's a combination of the ego aspect, where why should I apologize? Some it could have an aspect of hope that I don't need to apologize. I hope everything will just fall into place and figure itself out. Yeah, so I think those are two big ones. Which I think reason why people don't apologize. Sometimes people think it's not that big a deal. So I think it's a combination of these 2-3 things that actually get people to hold back. I
do think like sorry goes a long way, like a really, really long way.
Sure.
Yeah. During a fight, you have very sensitive people or sometimes oversensitive people, and they can catch your mood very quickly. It doesn't really have to be about something. I mean, if you find your partner coming in with a sullen expression or mood is off, there are some people who are so tuned into that immediately, you'll find a wall coming up, and you don't know what to do. Do I just mirror that person, or do I act normal?
Right.
What do I do? So that becomes that's another thing. You don't have to have a reason to fight. You just have to have your partner in a bad mood, and you're thrown off.
Yeah, kind of the vibe, spills over
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah.
So, bad mood and you're kind of doing okay, but just, you're trying to make a conversation and the response that you're getting, by virtue of that, you're like, okay, what the hell? I mean, I'm only getting, you're getting only
Monosyllabic.
monosyllables in terms of, replies that you're getting and everything else. And you're like, okay, like, why the hell should I be making an effort? So negative, kind or neutral, and then negative, it becomes negative, negative.
Negative,
So,
negative.
that kind of stuff happens.
This happens a lot with like a lot of people. I mean, I'm trying to now, not mirror moods. So, I used to be like that. And now I'm really trying to be like, I was oversensitive. I'm one of the oversensitive people, right? So now it's like, okay, you come in a bad mood, and I'll be like, okay, just give him some time to just relax. It's not about me. It's obviously something he's going through. And let's just give him some time. And then maybe in a while, I'll ask him what's wrong.
True.
And then maybe have a conversation about it.
I think that works. Sometimes
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
for a short duration is good. And yeah. And then of course it does make a lot of sense to change the environment, maybe head out for like a walk, some exercise. I know a lot of couples who work out together at gyms, or they go out for a meal or catch a movie, just something that changes the environment as well. So I think that can be helpful as well.
Or just sit and watch a movie together at home. Or I don't know, but how do you come out of a bad mood? Like, okay, you had a bad day at work. So how do you come out of a bad mood?
So, I mean, very rarely will, I mean, it'll have to be a really bad day for it to like, really pull me down now. So a lot of it, I will be, agnostic to what kind of stuff will normally pull people down. But if it's like a really, really bad day, I think what does help is, again, like I said, switch off, just maybe watch a movie, maybe just get out and just get some exercise. I think exercise helps immensely, because that kind of, changes the mood. Sometimes you just want to sleep over it. Sometimes you just want to like crash and say, tomorrow's going to be a better day, so I just need to sleep this one out. So those are some of the things that I do, but probably a combination of all of those. But yeah, I mean, me as a person, sometimes if the things are really going badly, I might have to like lock down and say I'm gonna figure my stuff out, because that's how I've always been. So rather than looking for help externally. But yeah, I'd say that it'd be a combination of either of those four approaches.
So when people fight, right, there are like 3-4 types of fighting. One is you're both yelling at each other and you're having it out, like full blown fight.
Yeah, so the neighbors know what's happening as
Yeah,
well.
so
Dishes
everybody
are
knows.
flying and everything else. Yeah.
So the other one is where you have two people. Okay, one is screaming or one is yelling and getting agitated, and the other one's just quiet. And you're like, is the guy thinking about his, what clothes he's going to wear tomorrow, or what is going on? And there's another scenario where some people, it's like a very passive aggressive, you just stop talking to each other and you just ice each other out, and, you don't bother to ask the other person what's wrong. And the fourth is, okay, we're not going to get into that one, but the fourth is where you get aggressive, like physically aggressive. You start hitting, or you start throwing dishes, or you start throwing things around the house.
Sure.
Those kind of physical outbursts are really not recommended.
Of course, no. Number 4 is unacceptable. And if you have someone who's abusive in the sense that the hitting and throwing stuff around and breaking things, obviously that is not acceptable. But even in the others, I think that if there are two people who scream at each other, sometimes it works for people. You have certain personalities who just get out of the system, okay, and then all of a sudden like everything is fine. So there's some people for whom that would really work. There are some people who just do the quiet thing and then eventually will break into a conversation and they'll sort their stuff out. It could be a longer duration. I think the first one can end pretty quickly. The other one will probably take quite a while before it kind of sorts itself out. And then of course you have some people who there's just one person doing the screaming, the other person doing the listening, and to my mind that's not healthy at all.
It's one of those things where just talk it out. I'm the person who wants that banter, right? So I was talking to another friend of mine, and we're the emotional ones, and we'd be like, what is this? And then you expect your partner to say something back, right? Like have a back and forth, or have a conversation. It doesn't have to be screaming at each other, but just banter. And then you have your partner that's like absolutely silent, and you're like, what the hell? It's like, earlier it was like, what? This is this is just so sad.
Sure.
But now you're like, okay, they're not going to change. So you just deal with it.
Yeah.
In a way, it's good that, you're non reactive because it can get bad. But it all depends on what you're saying to each other, right? If you're saying hurtful things. So another thing which is very important is when you're having a fight, not to say something that is mean or very hurtful, because words once said cannot be taken back, right?
Yeah.
And it can cause immense damage. Like you say something terrible and it'll stay with that person for the rest of their lives and they're not going to forget it. So be very careful about what you're saying in a fit of anger, because you will never be able to take it back. And sometimes when you're really angry, like the truth comes out. And it's not like I said it in a fit of anger. Yeah, I said it in a fit of anger and I
That was
actually meant
probably
it.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would have never said it otherwise. But so that's really, you have to be so careful about that, because you can damage a relationship irreparably.
Of course. Yeah. No, goes without saying.
Yeah. How would you say to get back into the conversation after a fight? I mean, I think the most important thing now is, how do you get back to normal after a fight?
Yeah. I mean, I've tried different approaches. Some have worked, some have not worked. I mean, things like bringing back, flowers, but you haven't had the conversation. Right?
That was the worst.
So, that, or bringing back, like gifts and stuff like that. So I've tried that out.
So, okay, wait. Let's talk about the flowers thing. Okay. The number one thing after you've had a fight is to resolve it. I still remember when I was at journalism school and I was friends with this guy, nothing else, but we'd had a fight and I was a little upset. I was quite upset about it and we hadn't talked about it. And then the next time I met him, I got him a box of strawberries. And at that time they were very expensive, right? And
sure. You didn't have money.
I didn't have the money to buy strawberries, but I bought the strawberries and I was like, oh my God, I think he'll be so happy with the strawberries. I gave him the strawberries and he looked at me and he was like, you trying to bribe me? What the hell is this? And I was like, what? You don't want my strawberries? And he was like, why are you trying to bribe me? I was like, I'm not trying to bribe you. I just thought I'd do something nice for you. But I didn't understand then, and I understood it later when we were married, that until you have resolved it, don't give any gifts. True. Because it actually seems like I give you this and we're fine. And you feel like, somebody's trying to buy you off. And when you would come with flowers, I mean, if we had like this Cold War going on, like, for, I was upset with you and I wasn't speaking to you or something for a while, instead of asking me, why are you upset? Like, what's wrong? You wouldn't ask that. And as a result, it would just be like days of stewing. And then suddenly you would come with a bunch of flowers and I literally would want to throw them at you.
Yeah, I get that.
Because I feel so like, you think by just giving me flowers, everything's going to be okay. I got that strawberry part, I really did at that time.
Yeah.
Because until you have that conversation, it's not about the big gesture. It's not about giving people things. It's about, hey, let's talk it out. Let's resolve this. Then you give me flowers, I'll be very happy.
True. Yeah, that makes sense. And again, like I said, I didn't have a strawberry incident when I was in college, so I had no clue, right? And for me, if I was like in a bad mood, someone gave me a gift, I'd be like, dude, like awesome, I love it. But so yeah, I think a lot of times you need to also figure out the person on the other side and how they're reacting, responding to a certain gesture. And if it's just a conversation that's going to do it, then right.
23 years, you should have figured each other out, dude.
You just, then, conversation cheaper. Like, save on flowers, save on rings and jewelry. So,
yeah, I mean, rings and jewelry and flowers you can give anytime, not when you're fighting before you've resolved your issues.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think I've got flowers after that ever, because I was so angry with him. I said, I feel like throwing it at you. I never got the flowers again.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what are the other ways one can get back into the conversation?
I think, sometimes what happens is that even if you're not able to speak directly, can you also ask for external help, right? And this could be perhaps a friend, or a family member, get involved. I mean, I've known
No,
people who's gone on a stage where eventually they had to go in
no,
for
not
counseling.
not the small, not the
Mm,
big fights,
mm,
but for the small fights, I realize one thing: the more you talk about your fights to other people, the worse it gets.
okay.
Because the more you complain and you grumble and you spread that negativity around, you're telling the whole world your business, and it's not respectful to your partner, right? I mean, we've all done it, but now I've just stopped doing it. I don't do it. um I don't do it.
Yeah.
Just resolve it between each other, because the less people know, the better it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for the little stuff that does make sense, but sometimes when things get blown out of
Yeah.
proportion, external validation does help. I mean, I know of instances where a friend coming in, a common mutual friend coming in, was able to get them to sit down and have a conversation and fix stuff as well. So there have been instances of that happening.
And there have also been instances of a friend coming in to fix the problems between a couple, and then that friend getting knocked out of the friend group altogether, because the minute the couple gets back together, the friend is out.
Yeah. So sometimes you end up
You
saying
lose the
stuff and
friendship.
you get the friend to say something, and maybe they were just trying to be sympathetic at the time. But when people get back together, they're like, he said this or she said this, and then
Yeah.
as a result, they're dead. So
Mm.
if you're a friend listening in, just know that be very
Be careful.
mindful and subjective in terms of what you're saying and your contribution as well to the conversation.
Yeah, I've realized, just try not to get in the middle of it,
Mm.
because it just never will work out well for you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if a couple really needs help, you go to your parents or you go to someone for therapy. Also, it's very difficult to give objective advice, because you're obviously going to be on the side of the person who you're friends with, right? And
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you're telling me your side, I'm only seeing your side. Okay, so there was an incident where I was talking to someone, and she broke down, and she was very upset. My partner does not value me anymore, he treats me so badly. And the partner was there, and partner was like, she's so emotional, she has all these issues, doesn't listen to anything. You're like, when you hear both sides of it, and then you realize that neither of you are listening to each other.
Sure.
You're not acknowledging her pain, and she's not acknowledging your issues with her.
Yeah.
And this happens. It happens to so many people. And there is no judgment here. But it happens to so many people. How do you come out of this? Like, just stop, take a break, and just sometimes just try and think about what the other person's saying. Why is this person crying? And why is this person getting upset with you? Just, if you just look at it from the other person's point of view, which is what most people don't end up doing. And
Yeah.
I realized one thing, that a lot of people who haven't really gone inwards and are not looking at improving themselves, they're still children stuck in an adult's body. You're emotionally not mature. You've got this, your childhood hurts, you've got your childhood traumas, you've got like all of those things buried inside you. You're just much better at hiding it. You become really sophisticated at masking your issues, but you're still the same kid. And who are we raising? You're raising children with the same traumas, because
Right.
you haven't sorted out your own issues. And as a result, it spills out onto your partners, it spills out onto everyone else.
True. Yeah, I think you're right. That sometimes it's also about putting yourself in the other person's shoes, so that role reversal piece works. Instead of seeing it always from your perspective,
Yeah.
okay, just say, okay, why is this kind of happening, and again, just ask the questions, and you'll get probably answers that'll keep you wiser for next time.
Sometimes it's the simplest thing is, when you see somebody in a bad mood or you see someone upset, just like, what's wrong? And it doesn't have to be a screaming match, it doesn't have to be a fight, it can just be a very civil conversation, like, okay, this is wrong. And instead of the partner saying, getting defensive and saying, but you are also like this, and like, you don't gaslight somebody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, your partner has a problem. Like, the number one thing is just Acknowledge. Number one thing is acknowledge that they have that problem.
And empathize, and say, and I think even something like, I know how you feel. So like what happens then is
So
that
important.
it's an empathy statement,
Yeah.
right? And then you're like, okay. And then I think that opens the door to conversation. So I think just a powerful statement like, I know how you feel, right? So yeah.
That is literally one of the most powerful things you can say after sorry. I know how you feel. I get it. You may not be able to do anything about it. So suppose I'm really having a problem with my in-laws. I feel invalidated. I feel that they treat me like shit. I don't have that problem. This is just a scenario I'm giving. Okay, I feel like crap. I mean, they don't make me feel good. And my spouse is telling me that, what is your problem? You always have a problem with everything. You always have a problem with my mother. You always have a problem with my father. That is not helpful.
Yeah.
That is not helpful at all. And it happens to so many people. And then you're living in resentment. You're living with somebody you feel just does not give two shits about you.
True
That's not the basis of any sort of healthy marriage.
Yeah.
And then that person thinks you're whining all the time. And you're like, this person doesn't validate my feelings. Simple thing. I get it. And just tell that person, I can't do anything about it, but I'm on your side. Okay, let's, just try to make that person feel better. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that eventually, what you need to start doing is just giving more of you back. I mean, relationships need work, right? It's like initially, when you were dating someone, and think about it, when you were dating someone before you actually got them, to be your, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, your attitude was quite different. I think once you kind of have them, then you start taking them, a bit for granted as well.
Totally.
So I think, again, just go back to the times where you were dating again, or like, you were kind of, courting each other. And I think you need to come back and you need to ask yourself, okay, how can I give more? How can I give more to this relationship? More in terms of energy, more in terms of, time, more in terms of commitment. And I think that itself can be, quite a game changer.
Tell me, how can you do that? How can you give
I do it
more?
all the
How can you
time.
give more time? How can you give more energy? Huh? Tell me.
Yeah.
Batao.
I'm just saying you can. I'm just saying
You can? Okay. Next time I'll tell you how he does it after a few years.
Yeah. Cut that out.
One thing I've seen, which is really, really disturbing for the person who's being ghosted, is being ghosted. Okay, you may not, you can't ghost someone when you're living with them. But if you're not living with them, or this is not a marriage, but this is like, when you're, you got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you're in a serious relationship. And then, you have a fight. And the other person, you may have said something or done something stupid. And the other person just stops talking to you. And you are like, okay, hasn't spoken to me for like 3 days, or she hasn't spoken to me for 3 days, 4 days. Okay, so then you start making an effort, saying, hey, what's up? No response. After a week, what's happening? Let's talk. No response. 10 days. What does that tell you actually? It just tells you that relationship's over.
Yeah. And also, I think it comes down to the fact that, did that person really value you? Because to walk away like cold turkey and like block you and all of that, it comes from perspective of, A, what did it really mean in the first place? And B, this other episode that we did where we had, the two people, Athar had come and Diksha had come. And of course, in that episode, people mentioned how today the options are just so many that if something didn't work, we can just go to plan B. So there is no like burn the boat mentality where you're saying, okay, I'm committed, I'm 100% committed. Today the relationships almost become like, oh, it worked out, it didn't work out. Okay, that's fine. I'll just move on to the next person. And you'll be unhappier for that. We see today so many people who are just struggling to build that meaningful connection. And it might seem easy at the time, but in the long term, it's a disaster.
Right. Still getting back to the topic of ghosting. Either you have to be a coward to ghost somebody. You feel so bad, you feel so hurt, you feel so whatever. Don't leave the other person hanging. It's an awful, awful, awful feeling.
Yeah.
Come out and say, okay, I don't want to be with you anymore. You don't have the guts to do that. then I mean, like grown ass men and women, I mean, come out and say, I don't want to be with you anymore. Or and especially if the other person has been, sending repeated like feelers and reaching out and messaging or trying to call.
Right.
Like this is so
Again,
wrong.
I would say that also, like, they say the straw that broke the camel's back. So maybe there was something that was leading up to that. There was a trigger, there was a symptom,
Yeah,
and it
whatever.
kind of did it. And I'm saying just it's just possible that this person
Definitely, it would
decided
be
that
something
enough
like
is
that.
enough, right? It's not gonna be like one instance, the first time it happened, and they'll walk away. If something like that happens, then you're stuck with someone really bad, or you're with someone really bad, and it's probably a blessing in disguise, but not validating or giving approval to the fact that someone should just ghost someone. I think
Tell
that's sad.
somebody it's over.
Yeah.
It's like losing a family member somewhere in some part of the world and not knowing whether they're dead or alive. It's like,
Yeah.
it's
Or
awful.
getting fired on WhatsApp or something. I mean, that's just
No,
impossible.
getting fired, you're fired.
Mm.
Ghosted means like there's just silence. That's not you. No.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, if both people are not interested, then okay. If the other person's not trying either, then it's fine. Okay, go.
Mm.
But if somebody is trying to reach out, say yes, no, maybe,
Sure.
or deal with it. So I think we've covered quite a lot of stuff, regarding fights and how to make up and things like that. And I suppose every relationship is a journey. And, you see different sides to each other only when a situation arises. Like you've been with a person for like 15, 20 years. And because you've not been in a certain situation, you won't see a certain side of someone.
Yep.
But when that comes up, you're like, okay. It may be amazing or it may not be such a positive side.
Sure.
But I still think that relationships are so dynamic that one has to work at it to make it work.
Yeah.
You really have to work at it. It's not something that you can't just coast along in inertia. It's not possible.
True.
We did a poll in office and we've got some very cute responses, on this. So let me read some of them out. Okay. So who usually makes the first move to make up after a fight and how do they do it? So somebody writes, it's her. She will suddenly start talking nicely once she realized she overreacted. And another one writes, my husband knows I have my little tantrums only with him because he pampers me the way my mom used to. He always comes back to me so naturally. If I fight or argue, he'll slip into funny voices or kiss me. And sometimes he'll just listen quietly and say, it's okay. I'm not giving you the pleasure of fighting with me. I know you're just bored. And somehow the situation always turns light and funny. That's very cute. Yeah. And another one says, during serious disagreements, he apologizes without hesitation. Then he gently explains what happens, why it happened, and why we shouldn't let ourselves get pulled into negativity. Because at the end of the day, we aren't just partners or lovers, we're friends first. And this one I liked a lot. I try to communicate openly and discuss in detail what's going wrong and how we can fix it. I keep trying until we reach a solution. I don't give up. I think the key is I don't give up. So,
yeah.
And there's
even
another
on the one which said, what makes you feel better, other flowers or honest communication. I think it's overwhelming in the space of communication and not flowers. Right. So honest communication, just communication, honest communication, an apology. So flowers are the things that just show off. So interesting. I mean, yeah, a lot of good insights on that one. And what is something you think people should not do after a fight? I think that's a pretty interesting one as well. You want to pick out some of those as well?
I think a lot of times it's like pokes and taunts with all things. Another reason why there are some people who can't express themselves. So when you feel really hurt about something, this is where the cold wars start and the icing out happens, where you can't come out with what you're trying to say, and you're feeling so hurt, and you don't know how to express that hurt. So you just you withdraw into yourself and you just become silent. And later on, you will find that if that has not been addressed, you will keep bringing it up keep bringing it up, keep throwing it in your partner's face. You did this to me, you did that to me, you did this to me that time. And then your partner's like, why do you keep bringing it up all the time? Because I feel that it has not been addressed. So the partner does not feel that reassured that this is not going to happen again.
Right.
So I think it's
an unresolved thing that just, if it's an open loop, then I guess that will lead to some degree of conflict.
Yeah, because I mean, if you know that, okay, we've resolved this, and I have a feeling that he's not going to hurt or she's not going to hurt me like this again, you're not going to bring it up so much. But if you're not sure that this is not going to happen, then you're going to keep, you did this to me last time, you did that, you did that, you did that.
Yep.
You don't resolve it, like you don't let it go.
Sure.
So so pokes and taunts with old things.
Right.
And they should not keep score and not take on their ego.
So I think, don't keep score. I think that's a very important aspect for sure.
So there you have it.
Yeah, there you have it. And if there's something that you feel we missed out, if there's something that you feel that you want to hear more about, again, drop us an email, and the handles are below. Drop us a DM. And truly, I think the key of what we spoke about today is communication is going to be key. A lot of gestures and all of those good things can actually follow in due course. But if you're going to have the avoidance theory and you just bury your head in the ground like an ostrich, when your head comes back up, nothing's changed, right? You're still going to get killed. So I think that's something that one has to be mindful of. And again, always a pleasure having the conversations with you. The instances that you spoke about, it did not relate to me. Just saying,
a lot of them didn't relate.
Yeah. So I just bring that out, for the record.
A lot of them did.
And it is a love roller coaster. Yeah. If there's only ups and no downs, then that won't be life, right? You have your ups, you have your downs, but you get through it. And I think that's what really matters.
This is what I wanted to add. If you're an ostrich with a head in the sand, the problem is going to come and kick you in the ass.
Good to know. Alrighty then. So that's that. End of episode 11. See you at the next one.